My first guest is the Right Reverend Robert Barron. He is an American Roman Catholic bishop and founder of the Word on Fire Ministries. Bishop Barron, I'd like for you to talk to us about the Christian virtue of hope, because at Christmas we're talking about the birth of Christ and how that brings people hope.
Well, St. Thomas Aquinas in our tradition says that hope is the longing of the will towards some good that's possible but arduous. It's very interesting there. So we long for certain goods, but some of them are pretty easy to attain. They're possible but not arduous. But hope is ordered toward a good that is possible but difficult to attain. And then the theological virtue of hope is the longing of the will toward God. So God's the supreme good. And arduous, yes, because we can't possibly attain that good on our own. If our fallen wills are the problem, our wills are not the solution. We can't will our way to God. And so we hope, we long for this arduous good of attaining God, and we're relying upon the power of God. So it's a kind of decentering of the ego. I think all the theological virtues have that effect. They decenter the ego. My life's not about me anymore. It's not about my self-assertion. It's about ordering my life toward God and trusting that God can bring me to this good that I can't possibly attain myself. I think that's the theological virtue of hope.
Would you say there's an increased appetite for the message of hope? And is that what your apostolate is centered on?
I think hope is always something that is very deep in the human heart, because we all know, implicitly or explicitly, that we cannot become happy through our own efforts, that no worldly good can satisfy the longing of the heart. It's the central, Calvin, it's the central tension and drama of human life. Much of poetry and art and literature comes from that we have an orientation toward a good that we can't possibly attain on our own. And so there's that decentering process. And so I would say it's behind every great work of art. It's behind every great human aspiration is something like hope. Because if life is just nothing but grim finality and grim darkness, why would you bother producing a work of art? So even someone that says, look, I'm an atheist, but yet they produce works of art, that's coming from some very deep place in us. That's the longing for a fulfillment that we cannot attain on our own. And to live in that paradoxical space, that's the space of hope. And it's where deep down we all want to live and all need to live.
We've seen a number of high-profile conversions to Catholicism this year. Shia LaBeouf was one of them. He talked about forgiveness in his interview with you. Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
That's part of the breakthrough of grace in his case, I think, was feeling forgiven, despite what he admitted were all sorts of sins and dysfunction in his life. But through the mediation of some wonderful people, and I knew them personally, these Capuchin friars out in California, through the mediation of those good brothers, he found the divine forgiveness. And that's what salvation consists in, allowing ourselves to be found. That's something I talk about a lot, that you talk about too, I think, is the Bible. It's not the story of our quest for God. I mean, that's in all the spirituality of the world, and every book on the shelf in the bookstores is about the human quest for God. The Bible is not about that. It is not about our quest for God. It's God relentlessly coming after us, seeking us. And so the virtue of hope, if you want, is that just the opening of the heart to allow oneself to be forgiven. Accepting the fact that we've been accepted, even though we're unacceptable. That might be a way to state that. And I do think you're right that Shia LaBeouf found that. And that's what salvation really consists of.
I think a lot of younger people can relate to that message. And it seems to me that beauty is attracting people to the church. We're filming in one of the most beautiful churches in the country. And of course, the Transcendental's beauty in particular is supposed to direct our gaze to something greater than ourselves, to direct our gaze towards God. Is that not the case?
All three function that way, truth and the good and beauty. But I think especially today, the beautiful has a special power, because we're resistant to true and good. We're very postmodern, very relativistic, and so we tend to be, hey, don't tell me what to think or what to do. But the beautiful just kind of shines. There it is. Just look at that Van Gogh picture. Just look at the Sainte Chapelle, and it awakens that longing. The wings begin to expand. It's like you can't help it. And so the number of people who have been converted over the centuries by beautiful places and things, I think is very interesting. A place like Chartres Cathedral, which is my favorite location on planet Earth, I think. The evangelical power of a place like that, because it's God beginning the awakening of the soul. And that's where like hope comes in again too. You know, hope is it ordering toward this arduous good that we can't attain. The arduous good in question being the transcendent union with God. And so beauty is indeed tied to hope.
Your Excellency, thank you very much for joining us. Merry Christmas.